welcome back. Guys, this was literally me this weekend. I was in a deep rabbit hole.
Upside down, boy, you turn me inside out.
Crazy. I cannot believe it myself, but I think I did it. So, this is the only video you will ever need to understand actually what really happened in Season 5. The thing is, on the first glance, we know it. Once you watch Season 5, you think, damn, what kind of pile of shit is that?
You have boundless access to unlimited creativity and imagination.
But once you keep digging, once you go beneath the shitty layer and look really closely into it, you will find a diamond. That is the crazy thing, and this is why actually I slowly starting to believe that Season 5 is pretty genius. Here are the keys that you need to look into and understand. First of all, the freaking radio tower, guys. Why the hell are we always in the radio station, and why the hell there is this huge radio tower? In the first episode they explicitly show us how tall it is and how big, because they have a race to run up there and they fix something on the tower to activate it again. The other thing that I cannot believe is not talked about enough is a wrinkle in time. Super important, and you see this book laying around everywhere. And a wrinkle in time, it's not only important, no, it's more. It's kind of the blueprint actually for Season 5. Season 5 is heavily influenced by concepts of a wrinkle in time. Once you understand a wrinkle in time, you also will understand where the Conformity Gate actually comes from. Lastly, of course, massive spoilers ahead. If you have not watched Stranger Things Season 5, then you should not proceed with this video. You should first go watch Season 5 and then come back to the video to understand what's actually going on.
Hidden episode?
A new hidden episode is kind of silly. I really don't believe that, because there's just too much to cover. It could not be in any way all solved within one episode. But Stranger Things is far from over. I don't believe at all that it's over. It's the biggest cash cow for Netflix. They will never let it go. There will of course be plenty of spin-offs first, some other side stuff, and I believe what is happening is the side stuff. They will leave breadcrumbs everywhere, and eventually all the spin-offs, all the side stuff will all be like one big web and coming back to the main story. And then we will see the main story from different perspectives, where this whole finale that we saw will then make more sense.
The power dial paradox.
Alright guys, and this is where it really begins. This is the biggest clue here that starts off the rabbit hole. We're talking of course about the mysterious power dial that is switching color from gray in episode 1 to red in episode 5. Okay, quick explanation if you have no idea what this is about. So, this happens in episode 5. Guys, episode 5 is a key episode actually. This is what I noticed. It is for sure. So in Season 5, you have this scene where Holly here and Max, they are in Vecna's mind, trapped inside his mind, and they notice that there are inconsistencies. For example, this merry-go-round has a different color in the center. Right here it is gray in the mind version, but in the real life we remember it was yellow. Okay, and this is showing us, yeah, there are inconsistencies in Vecna's mind where he remembers things differently, maybe incorrectly, or maybe just differently. Maybe, we don't know, but I think in a different time, older time, maybe this merry-go-round did have another color. Maybe it was gray, but it became broken because, you know, we saw it when Holly punched it, then it was shattered, right? So that for me means, oh yeah, this merry-go-round was in the real life at some point shattered when kids were playing on it, and then they had to replace this part and they put in a yellow one. Yes, so this is what I believe happened here, and Vecna still remembers the older version of it, where it did have the gray part, right? So this is a kind of small inconsistency in Vecna's mind, right? He still remembers more the old part. Yes, maybe he has seen the new one, but still in his mind anchored is the older version where it's gray. So we can take away from that yeah, in Vecna's reality there are inconsistencies. When you're trapped in the mind, he creates a very nice illusion. You think everything is like in your real world, but then you realize, no, I'm in somebody's other world, and stuff is a little bit different here. So he tries to fit his illusion to match you, because he can go into your mind, tries to know everything about you, but there are little things where it's not perfect, right? And if you look at it, you will notice it. So this here is completely established, right? This is what the authors show us. And of course, they don't show it to us for no reason. Okay, so we can establish in the illusion there are differences, and the authors clearly want us to know about those differences with the exhibition of this scene right here with the merry-go-round. Now, in the same episode, this is what is so crazy about it, right? We're not talking about another episode, we're talking about the same season and even the same episode. This is the crazy part, right? If this movie, like this filming mistake would have happened, right? For example, Let's say in season 2 there was an object, and yes, now in season 5 it has a different color. They filmed season 2, I don't know how many years ago. What, maybe 8 years, 7 years, I don't know. But that could be understandable, right? They didn't have exactly the same prop anymore, something happened, and that got, there was a mistake. But this kind of mistake that has happened right here is impossible, guys. It's impossible. Not in the same freaking season and planting it in the same episode. What do I mean? So, we're going back to this power dial right here, okay? You can see, this is episode 1. Okay, you saw it. In episode 1, it's gray, right? And now here is episode 5. Same power dial. It's also in the same location. I went back to check it because I wanted to see, is it the same location? Maybe there are different dials in this station or whatever. It's exactly the same dial in the same place. But the color has changed. And guys, it's not only the color. This could just be a lighting issue, but there seems to be issues with the rust. The object in episode 1 has a lot more rust than the object in episode 5, meaning the one from episode 5 is older. In the same episode, the merry-go-round stuff happens. This is what I mean why it's so crazy. In the same episode, it's clearly explained to us if colors are not correct or there are inconsistencies, we are in Vecna's mind. Now, the little trick. Why you don't notice this immediately is because this color change happens actually before the explanation. Before we get the merry-go-around explanation, this color change happens the first time. So, this is why we don't notice it immediately. However, they were clever enough to again show us this. This is the crazy part. Go back to season 5. This is no coincidence. They show us this kind of image like 2 or 3 times in the same episode. Every time they show us this dial in the main shot, not somewhere in the background, in the main shot, dolly zoom in on it, right? There's a dolly in movement of the camera taking time on this object. And they show us the changed color one before this explanation. And one more time in the end of the episode, they show us this again after this explanation, right? So this is the crazy part. Yeah, I think it's even 3 times. So first she turns this on. Then, for some reason, there's some problems. The cables are not long enough or something. She tests this out together with Will. It doesn't work. Then, the thing is, they stop the experiment. They wait for the others, especially Mike. And this is also the key, guys. Mike comes. They set up the cables in a new way and put this Demogorgon whatever on top of the building, and the experiment starts with Mike standing next to it. No like safety distance or anything, meaning so if something goes wrong with this experiment, Mike would probably be the first one who is affected by it. Super dangerous. But not only Mike, there's more to it, guys. Just hang on a second and you will see. And then we see this a third time because stuff gets out of hand, right? And then they scream, oh yeah, it's getting out of hand, Vecna is coming to us or something. And then she goes back and cranks it up all the way to 100. And here is the key thing. Why the hell would you crank it up all the way to 100? If Vecna is coming to you through this connection that you're just building, let's put it up to 100 to make it even stronger. No, you need to turn it completely off, right? But here it's kind of, we turn it to all the way to 100 so the Demogorgon dies, which kind of is dead already. Right? Why do you want to have it at full power? I would just turn it off, but they just turn it up full power to kind of solve the issue. And then this kind of mind flayer stuff flies up in the sky, whatever. Not really showing us, okay, is something not just starting now, or did this mind flayer stuff now is resolved? We don't know. It flies up in the sky, so I think it's actually the start of something.
I know you think you can run. You're scared to believe I'm the one, but I just can't let you go. I'd let the world
Truth of the radio tower.
let the This is how it always
And here is the crazy part, where the radio tower comes into play. The radio tower for me is one of the key objects. We see it in the very beginning when they climb up. They even have a race going up to show us how high it is. It's one of the tallest objects, right? But what does it have to do with the change of the color? Now, think about it. I was researching and here's the connection. Do you remember that Hawkins in Stranger Things is actually modeled after Montauk Project, right? We know that Stranger Things takes up a lot of conspiracy theories and made the show out of it, right? We know that. MK Ultra Project, Montauk Project, and actually, fun fact, Hawkins should have not even been called Hawkins. The Duffer Brothers wanted to call it Montauk, right? After the city, it was modeled off. But later it was changed to a fictional name, Hawkins. Now, why is this so crazy? Okay, so the Montauk conspiracy is that in this village, Montauk, there was an Air Force station The military was there, the government was there, they were involved, and there was a large tower. Okay, just like there is a large radio tower in Hawkins. In Montauk, allegedly, according to a conspiracy, they did experiments on how to control the minds and change the memories of people. And, according to the conspiracy, this didn't even only stay in the lab, they also started to test it on the real population who lives there. And how did they do it? They had a big Montauk tower. People pointed to is the ANFPS 34, Cold War, early warning radar installation, blah blah blah. So there was also a big tower, and they believe that this tower was used to broadcast mind control. The radar was extremely powerful and is documented as causing interference with UHF television radio reception, leading to shutdowns, recalibrations. Locals and later documentaries retell stories about headaches, bad dreams, animals reacting when the dish rotated. Okay, so this you can clearly see this is where Stranger Things took a lot of inspiration ideas from. This is where the nose bleeding stuff comes from, and we have seen it in Stranger Things all over again. The television signals are super important, the radio frequencies are super important. All of this has to do with the Montauk Project. The conspiracy specifically claims about controlling the population through the mind control, and the tower was in the center of it. Everybody was referring to the tower. Okay, so we have a scenario here where there's a village that we know already, this is a fact, Hawkins is modeled after, and even the name of Hawkins should have been Montauk. Then we have a tower in the Montauk Project, which is in the center of the conspiracy, and we have, suddenly, in Stranger Things Season 5, this huge radio tower, which before, I don't think was really mentioned or really important, but now in Season 5, obviously everything revolves around this tower, because we are always there, we always see it. So could it be that a specific someone is planning to use the tower, the radio tower in Hawkins, to do the same thing? Could it be that it is used as a tool to influence the mind of all the people living in Hawkins? Could that be? And if yes, who would do that? Could it be that somebody who already knows a lot about mind control and has it as their speciality and strength, wouldn't be somebody like that, let's call him Vecna, be interested in using such a tower to control a lot of people at once? Wouldn't that be a nice idea? This will open your eyes what is actually going on in this freaking Season 5. We know Vecna, his power is to go in people's minds, manipulate them, plant some false memories, mess with them and stuff like that, right? We know this is his power, we know this is what he likes to do. He likes to operate from the shadow, he wants to infiltrate minds. This is what he's doing. Normally he doesn't fight physically, he likes to operate from the shadows, infiltrate the minds. But have you ever noticed something? Vecna always takes one victim at a time, maybe maximum 2 victims at a time. Sure, he can take his victims one at a time and then put them in a trance. We have seen that. And in that way he can put multiple people in a trance. But wouldn't it be nicer to have a signal that intercepts multiple minds at the same time, where he can put multiple people simultaneously in a trance and go through their minds all at once? We know Vecna works for the Mind Flayer. Now the thing is, what do they need to do to control whole Hawkins, to incept all the minds of the whole population living there? They need to have a tool, they need to have a transmitter, they need to have something so they can scale it up, right? Because Vecna cannot go to everyone in Hawkins and just control them out of nothing, otherwise he would have done that already and he would have won already. But, of course, if he can use such an object as the radio tower, then he can do it. And this is exactly the key, guys. Alright, do you remember the scene where the group, Mike, Will, Robin, where they do this half-baked experiment out of nothing, where in the first time I watched Stranger Things I was like, wow, this is stupid, we will just place a Demogogo there and we will do some crazy stuff, we don't even know if it works or whatever. This actually is the biggest mistake, because they are doing this in that moment, I believe, they are turning up this freaking dial to 100%, and we know it in the end of the season, it stays at 100%, and because they placed a Demogogo there, they made this connection to the Mind Flayer. And once they do this, the Mind Flayer is dialed in, Vecna is dialed in as well, and they start to cast an illusion over whole Hawkins. This is what is happening. And I believe one of the person which is affected most by the illusion is Mike, because he even stands right next to this when this whole half-baked experiment goes through. He stands right into the danger zone. So, this last scene where you saw this mind flayer like material or whatever it was spiraling up the tower was showing us the mind flayer is now in that radio frequency and starting to control everybody's mind on the town, casting a massive illusion. So this is why I'm saying episode 5 is the key. Everything that happens there with the illusion, the mind control is explained. If you take a close look, it's clearly explained, right? We have Holly Max showing us how we can spot an illusion, how the illusion works. We have the radio tower, where on the tower they specifically show us something is not right. This is why they placed the red dial. And also in season 5, very important, we have Max and Holly going into the mind cave, where Holly is explaining to us that this is a lot like what is happening in A Wrinkle of Time with Kamazots, right? I will get into this later in this video. I didn't want to overload you with everything. I wanted to bring you the tower first because this is, I think, the most important. But it's gonna get even crazier, guys. This episode 5 is mind-blowing because it explains you literally everything without you realizing that it explains you all of that. Okay? And it's gonna get crazier, guys. Check this out. Alright, because episode 5 for me was always weird. This title, Shock Jock, you know? Shock Jock. Like what the hell is that, right? I had no idea. But this title for me was attention grabbing. Once I saw this in the beginning when I watched episode 5, I was already thinking, what the hell? So, the title is super fitting. What does it mean? Shock jock is an American radio term for a DJ host or radio host who tries to get attention with provocative, outrageous and controversial on-air talk. Basically, say wild stuff to keep people listening. Okay, why this fits here? Because, again, they choose this title specifically to show you in this episode 5 it will be something about the radio tower. It will be important. The radio tower will be the key here. Why else they would do a title that is referring to radio broadcasts and all of that stuff, right? And such a specific one. Now it's getting even better. The episode is centered on WSQK, the radio station, and its broadcast role in the plot. So the title signals this is the radio episode. You got it, guys? This is the radio episode because this is where what happens. The Vecna broadcast, so to speak, is starting. The illusion broadcast of Vecna is starting over Whole Hawkins, Mind Flayer / Vecna, right? Thematically, it fits your theory. Shock Jock is about manipulating attention via frequency. This is how you could also say it, right? Shock Jock means in a better way where you don't need to give everything away. You cannot call the title manipulating attention via frequency. If you say that, everybody knows what this episode is about. But if you call it Shock Jock, you need to think a bit more. Okay? It is about manipulating attention via frequency, which mirrors Vecna manipulating perception, whether through literal radio infrastructure or a carrier wave wide. There you got it, guys. So I love this episode 5. This is super nice, and this is where I'm telling you, actually, season 5, episode 5 is a freaking diamond, guys. It's a freaking gold mine. But there is even more. The Frankenstein Experiment. Okay, guys, do you remember when they were all in the radio station coming up with their 2 plans? There was one plan from Lucas and one plan from Erica. And it was pointed out that the plan of Lucas is much faster and much bolder, therefore much more dangerous. And now the key line, Erica said, okay, you guys want to go with the Dr. Frankenstein experiment. And this is also super important, and I don't know why nobody mentions this. Very, very easy connections to see. And they show us this in the dialogue, explaining to us exactly what this scene is about. And this is where I'm sure the Duffer Brothers took their inspiration from this scene. This must be from the horror classic Frankenstein. Makes total sense because the whole setup, how the Demogorgon is like laying there, how they tie him up, put the electricity into him, he's already kind of dead, is exactly what happens in Frankenstein, right? So, knowing about that, I went of course back to ChatGPT and asked about, okay, do you remember what happened in Frankenstein? What is the connection here, right? Keep in mind, ChatGPT didn't give me any of these ideas. I had to think about all of them myself, but that one was easy, guys. I was in the shower thinking about it and I was like, yeah, that is Frankenstein, must be. And then I saw the line where they even say it, and I was thinking in my head, didn't they say something about that too? And they did. So they explicitly mentioned it. Frankenstein actually means there are smart people pushing power too far. We see this literally with the power dial going on 100%, right? And they do it fast, emotionally, and in secret, right? This is exactly what happens here as well. And once they do it, they think, oh, our experiment was successful, but then they are shocked about the consequences, because actually they created a monster in that moment, which they have no control over anymore, and they cannot take that mistake back. This is the key point. Yeah, this is exactly your tower moment. They strap up a creature, Demogorgon antenna, wipe into an electrical system, push it toward 100% because they need the result now. The real horror, the creator loses control of the thing they just created. In Stranger Things terms, you use the tower plus the creature as a tool, but once you wake it, a new system forms that you don't get to choose how it behaves. So you created, activated something you can't unmake. They awoke the monster, and you can see this in the end by the Mind Flayer particles spiraling up the tower. Okay, so the Frankenstein moment kind of plays out like this. Frankenstein, tower hubris, falls, victory, the bridge lives. This again, the whole Frankenstein reference fits perfectly into this idea that this experiment was actually a huge mistake and a huge failure. Right, they just woke up the monster, which is the Mind Flayer, gave the monster a lot more power. Now it can influence whole Hawkins, and they completely lost control over the creation, what they just did. And also this kind of vibe it gave us, right, when it spiraled up the towers, was pretty eerie, guys, pretty eerie. So this is definitely not a successful experiment. Also, what I noticed, very important, this scene of the particles spiraling up the tower, this was also in the trailer, guys, for season 5. They put that in the trailer, so it must also be important. It's not just a random scene. This for me is the key scene where we know now some kind of monster is created and the illusion starts. Another thing I want to address, you might think, but it's kind of a stretch, right? How can the Mind Flayer control like all of the minds in Hawkins with this kind of antenna? And thinking about that, no, it's not a stretch at all, because once this experiment was playing out, conducted, the show itself communicated to us that it works, right? Because Will gets connected to the Mind Flayer, can observe anything. You know, his power is basically amplified via the radio station, and the connection works because the Mind Flayer particles basically creates a connection to the hive mind itself, showing us it is definitely possible to tap into the hive mind from further distance with the antenna. Meaning, on the other hand, if you reverse it, the Mind Flayer can expand his influence through the hive mind with the antenna as the tool in the center, transmitting and broadcasting. So right there it shows us, yeah, this thing works, right? And the show clearly communicates us that is possible. So therefore it is not a stretch at all to think that, yeah, now that they started this, actually the Mind Flayer can tap in at anyone that lives in Hawkins within the proximity of the tower, right, where the tower has reached. And we also know from the manual, they explicitly show us the manual of the tower in episode 1. This is why I was also thinking about later on. I was like, yeah, it's weird that they really show us this to us, right? And with this manual, they want to establish a couple of things. They want to show us exactly what the model is, so we know, okay, this is a big and powerful tower. It can easily reach the whole town of Hawkins and beyond, the whole region actually. So it's very powerful. Then they go into the manual and they show us 2 other things. Funnily enough, they show us something about shadow switches. And of course, I've been looking up that as well. Here is the delicious part, how it could be applied to Stranger Things. But as a thematic wink, it's delicious. A shadow switch is literally a switch that controls things indirectly, in the background, which is exactly how tower as amplifier hidden layer theory feels. Yes, because we never see how actually this tower takes over the minds. This is really from the shadows. It's like a shadow switch, right, that is being activated here. And this was shown to us in episode 1, right? They really showed us the manual in detail. Of course, they also wanted to show this awkward scene between Steve and Nancy and stuff. And I love that they did it in that way, because that shows us Netflix, Dufner Brothers, they still care about the audience enough to do the story in such a way that you need to think about it. Not everything is spoon-fed to you here, right? Everybody was complaining, oh, Stranger Things is bad because they're doing these things where they know people are watching on their iPhone and whatever on their phone and they're not even paying attention, so we need to explain everything over and over and over again. Everybody was complaining about that, but as you can see, all of this was not explained. You need to find it out. So actually you need to solve the mystery yourself. And this, I love it. I love it, guys. I love this mystery stuff. And now you might ask yourself, okay, if the big illusion over Hawkins is starting now, why is already the dial red? That could be different things. It could be just a signal for the viewer, or what I believe is that they were using the tower before already, Mind Flayer, Vecna, but on a much smaller scale, right? They did infiltrate, maybe some people of the group, definitely Will. We know that Will was directly connected to Vecna. So they did that, but they could not do that at scale, and only once it was dialed up to 100%. This is where it had the full power. And once actually the group was stupid enough to do the work for them to place this Demog over there to really open the connection so the Mind Flayer can merge with the whole broadcast frequency, this is where it can really start, right? But before that, like I said, they were already manipulating certain people of the group, and this is why the dial was red. To make the group do what they did in the end, what did the group do? They were super scared of Vecna. They were like, oh my god, Dimension X is coming tonight. Oh, we gotta do fast things. We gotta do stuff that is half-baked and not think about it. Remember, guys, what happened there? The group had two ideas at that evening, and I remember Joyce, she was saying just throw the darts, right? It doesn't matter how dangerous it is, just throw the darts and hope one of them will hit the bullseye, right? Do you remember this? So Vecna and the Mind Flayer, so they created this sense of urgency while infiltrating the minds of the group, so they make a mistake like that, right? Which they can then benefit from. And this is also why you now understand the slogan X is a lie, right? Dimension X, the whole threat from Dimension X is actually not real at all, because that is not the main plan. And I'm super glad about this, because I also was so angry when I first time, because I was also so let down when I watched Stranger Things. I was thinking, what kind of stupid plot is this? We have seen this over and over again in Hollywood. There is some kind of planet or some kind of threat, some meteor, whatever is coming, is destroying everything tonight, and we need to save the world, right? This was the plot. It was super one-dimensional, and it was super stupid, and the 12 kids were never explained. I will come to them later and explain you the 12 kids as well. There's another reason for that. But that means the whole Dimension X thing was just to create a sense of urgency. So they focus on the wrong threat, make hasty decisions, make the mistake they have to make so that the Vecna plan works, while Vecna from the shadow is infiltrating whole Hawkins, right? And this is why Dimension X is a lie. And this is also why in the end, in the finale, there are no Demogorgons and no Demo dogs and bats and all of these creatures in Dimension X, right? Because Vecna at this point and the Mind Layer, they do not care anymore to protect Dimension X or whatever, right? Because their real plan is already working, is already fully intact, right? So the group can do whatever they like. They can go to Dimension X, try to do something, be distracted there. That's even better. If they completely go for the bait of Dimension X, which is not the real threat, let them work themselves out there, right? Who cares? The real plan, which they planted and did in the shadows, totally worked. So they don't need to protect Dimension X at all. But we will get to that as well. But as you can see, it all makes sense now, right? There's a reason why Dimension X was just empty like that. It's kind of like on a chessboard, right? You're basically already having your opponent at checkmate, right? And for some reason your silly opponent still tries to take a pawn from you. Let him have it. Let him have it. His felt victory, right? So in my opinion, the red dial is the first sign that we can see, okay, there's some kind of mind trick illusion going on here, pay attention. And after the Mind Flayer particle spiral up the tower, this shows us, okay, now it's gonna go over whole Hawkins. And this is where a lot of people always said, oh my god, Stranger Things Season 5 is so dumb, how is that possible? They just defeat Vecna, even though Vecna exactly knows what the plan is, but he just let it happen and stuff. And yeah, it's like that. He knows what they're going to do, and he timely counteracts their plan by casting an illusion over whole Hawkins. And this is why he also keeps everybody always alive who is of use to him. This is why Will is never killed. This is why Joyce is never killed, even though there were opportunities. They are useful to him. Sure, Will can sometimes spy on him, and it's kind of silly, right? But Will is his main anchor to control the group. And he needs to spy on the group because he knows there are two people in the group who can be a danger to him, right? That is 11 and 8. And this means, of course, now that we know that, everything happening after episode 5, we need to look at it extremely carefully, because we will not know at that point as a viewer anymore what is real and what is not real. We cannot know it. It's impossible, right? Because some people, like 11 for example, must know there is something wrong. There is some illusion going on. Also, Lucas, he also kind of knows it. How many times he warns us and says, this is a deja vu, what is going on, something doesn't feel right. So there are some people who are more aware about it, but cannot explain it. Some people should know about it right away, like Alfie. I will explain how this plot then plays out. But once we know this key information about the radio tower and about this illusion that is coming over whole Hawkins, we can understand everything else in the plot as well. And this is where you see season 5 is slowly becoming a diamond. Okay, yeah, so this is the next one that is important. Let's go deeper into the rabbit hole, but I don't want to go over every inconsistency, it would be too much, so we will leave it at the most important ones, okay? So this is at the moment where like Will is like coming out and stuff, and here he says something very strange. He says, we liked biking to Melvitz for milkshakes, okay? Melvitz is the store where Joyce is working, and we know from the whole season, from every season, that there is no milkshake there, right? We know that. So meaning, in the lifetime of Will, you could not buy any milkshakes there. There's no milkshake shop there. However, it turns out in the past they did sell milkshakes there, and it was at a time when Vecna went there, right? So Vecna/Henry, he used to go there to buy milkshakes.
Conformity Gate has to do with Will's coming out scene in episode 7, where Will said he's just like all of his friends and he loves cycling to Melvolt's for malted milkshakes. But in 1987 Hawkins, Melvolt's doesn't sell milkshakes, it's just a general store, it's where Joyce works. But in 1959, when the first shadow is set, it was a diner.
And again, the illusion kind of crumbles here because Vecna tries to make the perfect illusion. He kind of blends in his personal own memory to fill up maybe something like he doesn't know. It's kind of like when AI, right, starts to hallucinating. It's kind of the same concept here, I guess. So basically, that's what he's doing. And now the big question, is Vecna AI? No, I'm just kidding, guys. But basically, he's just filling this stuff up with his own memory, and this is why this happens. So it's kind of an hallucination, like where the illusion becomes broken again. Who is the threat? The threat is actually 11 and 8. Those two could get dangerous. And actually, guys, while we're at it, let's talk about 11, 8, and how this all comes together.
She wants to escape.
11 and 8. The escape.
So basically, we know that Vecna can see everything through Will. We know he counterattacks their plan with creating an illusion on Mike, most likely. Because if you think about it, with Will, there was always this question, yes, is he separated now from the Mind Flayer? Is he not separated, right? And then it turned out he actually was never separated, but he only feels the connection when something is near. Okay, so this is what turned out, but that's why 11, etc. stayed around, because nobody was sure exactly what's going on with Will. But the second another illusion starts on somebody else, right? The second when, for example, Mike gets pulled into the illusion, once he was standing right next to the radio tower, this is when 11 knows that the group is infiltrated. Now, what does this mean? This means the group is infiltrated, right? So logically, what does 11 and 8, who are the main people who can actually take down Vecna or become a threat to him, what do they need to do? They need to do one thing. They need to separate themselves from the group. It is too dangerous for them to stay around with the group. Yes, of course they like their friends, of course they want to protect them and all of that, but it's too dangerous because they cannot come up with a plan if there is a spy, right? And you could see this. How do they separate from the group? First, they connect their minds to each other, so they're in a separate mind layer where they can come up with their own plan, but stay with the group, right? But then they notice, okay, this is not working enough, we need to physically separate from the group and give the illusion that we're both dead. That's what they need to do, and this is the whole time why 8 is also saying to 11 it's the only way. We need to pretend that we die in the Upside Down. Of course they don't say we need to pretend that we die there, but she says we need to die there, right? But actually what she means is we need to pretend to die there. Everybody must believe we are gone, and the reason why everybody must believe they are gone is so that the connection in the mind layer breaks. Of course, in the physical layer the connection must break as well, but also in the mind layer people need to think about that they are dead, right? So they also become obsolete in the mind layer, because we know Vecna likes to attack over the mind layer and he likes to sniff around there as well. So the connection in the mind layer must break. So there must be deliberate memory planted about a person dying, right? And this is why I believe we see this grand illusion of 11 staying in the upside down, right? This is not only important for the military, which is trying to catch them. They couldn't care less about the military. Yes, the military is traumatic for them. It's kind of a threat for them, but if they really want, they can hide from them. And they are more powerful than them, right? They can just go to another country and live in the woods or whatever. They have done it before. It's totally possible. But the real thing is they must separate from the group. And like with that, we mean really separate. And the reason why it happens, 11 doesn't want to do it, but because 8 is coming back, what's her name, Kaya or something like that, she convinces her finally that she must do that step. So what is really going on? There is a fight which is on different layers and perspectives and everything, and I think eventually we will see a rerun of all of this stuff in the finale, what's going down. Eventually we will see what is real, what is an illusion, and we will also see different perspectives. We will see it from Mike's perspective, I believe we will see it from 11's perspective. This is, I think, what will happen down the road in some years and whatever. This, for me, is also the main clue, or main reason, I should say, why everything is so strange when they come back from the upside down, right? They defeat Vecna or whatever, they come back out of it. It feels really strange. Because, why is that? 11 knows there's an illusion going on Mike, right? Or maybe on even more people of the group. We don't know, but there is some kind of illusion. She can tap into the illusion, so sometimes she is there, but you also notice she's a lot of times very absent, right? She doesn't really participate in the action or anything because she knows what is the reason to participate in the action. She doesn't want to participate in the action because then Vecna would notice actually that she is also hijacking his illusion, right? So that's why she's kind of passive in there. Until the finale, of course, there she tries to take also some action. And there it is hard to say in the end what is actually really happening and what is not happening in the real life, right? What is in the illusion, what is happening. I'm not sure. I believe it's a mixture of both in the finale. Like it's not all of that is an illusion. I think parts of that are real, parts of that are illusion. What do I mean? For example, I believe the scene where 11 goes into Vecna's mind and tries to free the kids and everything. This, I think, is all really happening. But other things maybe are not really happening, right? Like I said before, 11 and 8, or Kaya, whatever her name is, I can never freaking remember it. Basically, they made the plan already before together to pretend die in the upside down, separate from the group for good, to then, as a team, go against Vecna to break his illusion, which he starts to control more people in the group, and to stop his greater plan, where I'm not sure if they know actually about the greater plan at that point. We don't know it. It could be that 11 and Kali, that they still at that point have no idea what actually is the greater plan of Vecna with the radio tower. Could very well be. Or they know it already. I don't know. Impossible to say. I believe they don't fully know it, but they know, like 11 knows, that Vecna is pulling some mind tricks on the group, starts to manipulating other people. That's exactly the point where they need to separate, go on their own, make a plan, figure out what the hell is going on, and then go against Vecna. So there's different kind of layers. There's the group against Vecna. This is the kind of story we see, the whole group against Vecna, but that story will never end in a win, right? The win we see is an illusion. It cannot end in a real win. The group has no chance against Vecna, right? And the group cannot go together with 11 against Vecna because Vecna's already spying on the group. Doesn't make any sense. But in secret, like I said, 11 and Kaya, number 8, they create another illusion through the powers of Kaya, with which they are working to go against Vecna, okay? And what is their illusion? The group, Mike, Hopper, whoever, they would never leave the upside down without her. Never. She tried to tell that them before, but she, you saw what happened. So they will never leave the upside down without her. So she must come out of the upside down. So this is exactly what happened. What about number 8 then? Does number 8 die in the upside down? No, she doesn't die there at all. And why is that? Do you guys remember this moment when she's supposed to die? Some kind of officer or military guy is kind of aiming at her, wants to shoot her, but right at that moment a bomb explodes, so we never saw the shot. This is of course a choice by the directors, of course. Why they need to do it in that way? If they want to show us she's dead, then they will just show us how she gets shot, right? But right at that moment is an explosion, so we have no idea what happens. Actually, this explosion much more shows us that this guy was missing when he was shooting, because he wanted to shoot, but then the explosion happens. You can see how he's kind of shocked by the, kind of the shock moment. His kind of gun goes on the side very briefly, and then boom, right? So there is no way in hell during this moment he somehow can still hit his target. No way. I don't believe that for 1 second. So what actually happened here is Kaya, number 8, and 11, they already know we need to somehow die in the upside down. both of them already know we need to somehow separate from the group. Number 8 will do it with a fake death, of course, why not? Nobody really cares about her, but 11 needs to go out of the Upside Down, right? And now you also understand why it feels so weird, this moment when 11 is like going back into the Upside Down, right? Because if you just take the plot for what it is, it doesn't make any sense, right? Why she comes out and goes back into it and wants to die there suddenly for no reason, that doesn't make any sense. The thing is, she came back up out of the Upside Down with everybody to guide them out. Otherwise, there would have been madness and chaos. The whole group would be like, yeah, if you will leave us, we will also stay here and whatever, right? So she guided them purposely back up out of the Upside Down, so they will make sure everybody's coming out of it. And then she's like, oh, guess what, guys? I want to die now. And then she goes, right? And like I said, it completely makes no sense. Because if you believe the theory about the military stuff, like, oh, you know, the military is this big problem, I can never live freely, oh, this is messed up, I need to break the cycle and now do this kind of suicide thing. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because, first of all, she was successfully hiding from the military before. Second of all, why it is so senseless, and I was really also hating this plot in the beginning. Now I understand it, but in the beginning I was hating it because I was thinking, yeah, this doesn't solve anything. If you just kill yourself to break the cycle, you don't actually break the cycle, because the military before already was investigating the Upside Down, all of this mysterious stuff. They did have other portals, for example, this Russia portal. They somehow got to it before without 11. Yes, with 11 they could open another portal in Hawkins and something like that, but they had already been working on it, right? And they had Henry before, right? They had Vecna before. So this idea to think about the cycle will stop when 11 just kills herself there is completely senseless. And this I already saw the first time I watched it. The very first moment I was thinking, okay, nonsense. This is like a bad script. But like I said, it's not how it seems. But this is what was my first reaction to it. It's nonsense. And it also doesn't make any sense, because if you think about it, 11 is the strongest person from the group fighting against Vecna, right? And against the military as well, right? So if the military wants to do new stuff, right? New experiments and everything. If 11 is gone, super, that's perfect, because they can still do their experiments. They still have the whole research. Everything was already written down by, what's his name, Brenner or whatever. And yes, it will delay their whole research. If they cannot have 11, it will delay it, of course, but they will find other ways. And then if 11 is gone, what's the purpose? The most powerful person knowing about this whole project, the only person who can stop it in case something goes wrong, suddenly kills himself to give them like the freeway? It doesn't make any sense, right? If you really think about it, this whole story about the military and the vicious cycle and that needs to be stopped is senseless. And also, didn't it feel so weird when this number 8 suddenly was there and she was this super downer the whole time? She was like this emo person the whole time, saying how the military is so bad and we need to die, blah blah blah. The thing is, number 8 and 11, they could of course not openly plan what they're going to do, right? Because then Vecna would have known about it. So they needed to always spin this story about the military, how it's so bad, blah blah blah, right? To really sell this point. So the whole story about this kind of, oh, I need to die here in the Upside Down because the military will hunt you forever and I am the person who's responsible for that, therefore I must now, you know, die and leave you guys. This is only an excuse to give to the groups so that they can understand what 11 is actually doing, give them a kind of false reason, but the real reason, like I said, is something completely else. They must separate from the group without knowing why they're doing this, be erased from their minds so they can go ahead and fight Vecna then. So the logical way to do it is exactly like that. So she pretends she was dying, right? This is an illusion, it's not true. Then somewhere she was hiding in the Upside Down, right? Was meeting again with 11. They were both going somewhere outside of the Upside Down, most likely because the Upside Down becomes destroyed. So they both get out of it and cast this final illusion while both of them actually run off somewhere else. This is exactly what is happening there. And do you know what is the proof of why this is happening? I was thinking about it more deeply, and there is one scene that kind of shows us again, yes, this is exactly what is happening.
I just finished watching Stranger Things and started wondering, is Mike's theory about 11 true? Is she still alive? Let's look closer. First, the nosebleed. 11 gets a nosebleed every time she uses her powers, but after her final psychic conversation with Mike, the camera moves in and there's no nosebleed. This means the 11 at the gate wasn't real, especially with 10 sonic suppression devices aimed at her, disabling her powers. Second, Mike figures it out at graduation. there's no way 11 could have contacted him psychically while the sonic weapons were active. Which means she was already far away thanks to Kali, whose death was an illusion as well, since 11's hands are not covered in blood after touching her wound. Finally, the end song is Heroes by David Bowie, a song used twice before, when Will in Season 1 and Hopper in Season 3 were presumed dead. And both times, they weren't.
How could 11 go to the portal suddenly, right? This is also a key thing. There's not even a scene about it, but this is also something that is very, very strange. And before going to it in detail, let's talk also about the Derek waving scene, and let's go through both of them. And the important question for me here is, what exactly is like real, and when does the secret plan kick in with number 8, where 11 becomes invisible, right? So where is this exact moment? Because I'm thinking, could it be that already 11 was a kind of illusion when they went out together out of the Upside Down? Did she create this illusion for the whole group that 11 is going with them? Or is it the case that 11 was physically present and then, like Mike said in his theory, suddenly she became invisible because number 8 made her invisible when she came out of the truck, right? So here I was thinking a lot about it, because first I was thinking, okay, she was an illusion the whole time when they came out of the Upside Down, but actually it cannot really be true. And let me show you my final thoughts here. Overall, I'm going pretty much with Mike's theory here. Is, do you remember when they come up and they're all in this truck, right? So there is first of all this very weird scene, which I thought is a key scene, but maybe it's only a foreshadowing scene actually, is, yeah, Mike, like everybody in the truck is kind of happy, celebrating, all of the couples are together with each other. There's also Mike in 11, right? And here 11 must be real in my opinion, because the thing is that she is physically touching Mike, right? So it cannot be an illusion actually at this point. But weirdly enough, Derek is suddenly waving at Mike out of nowhere, kind of, almost as if Derek would not see 11, right? So I know there's a lot of rumors about that 11 was already an illusion at that point, but I don't think so, because they're physically touching, right? And also later you will see, once the truck is holding, there's like this military personnel who's grabbing actually 11 coming out of the truck. They really grab her and still see her at this point, right? So at this point 11 must still be real, and it must be that the real version of her, not an illusion, came out of the Upside Down with them together. Now, why was Derek waving so weirdly? And then Mike was like, hey, you mean me? Why suddenly? This was a weird scene, but I think this was kind of a foreshadowing scene that kind of 11 will be gone, because the whole time when they're coming out of the Upside Down, I was thinking something bad is happening, all the couples are so happy together and whatever, and I think this waving scene was kind of like an innocent like foreshadowing that something is happening to Mike in 11, and 11 will be gone. So I think there's nothing more to it, though the scene is very weird. I think this is the only reason why this is happening in that scene. However, how does 11 then escape? I think it's exactly like it is explained in Mike's theory, that number 8, she is also somewhere. She made it out of the Upside Down. We don't know where, but she didn't die there. She came out of it because she never died, and she's casting this illusion of making 11 invisible. It must be that way because, like I said, because the military personnel was still physically grabbing 11 when coming out of the truck. There's this small scene where you see that. But then suddenly this sergeant woman of the military, I forgot her name, she is saying, okay, where's the girl? And then this other military officer says, oh, she was just here, literally next to me 1 second ago, and she is gone, right? So that means for me, okay, she must have become invisible at that moment. Everybody was like, oh, she was here, but now suddenly she's gone, like in 1 second. So that means at this point it's true, she must have become invisible. This is why nobody saw her going somewhere, right? If she really would have gone back to the Upside Down portal to like do the suicide, whatever, if she would have walked back there, no way, because the military was already grabbing onto her, helping her out of the truck. Everybody was watching her. She's the main person they are after, and suddenly she's gone in 1 second. It's impossible, right? So it must be that she really became invisible, and that is also for me the final proof that number 8 is still alive and they're doing this plot together. And like I said, the Derek scene for me is just like an innocent kind of foreshadowing, kind of, oh yeah, this couple will break apart in the next scene, but nothing else. I don't read much more into it, though it is a weird scene. 11, she could have never used her powers because of these speakers that were on, if she would have stayed in that location physically. So for me this means she became invisible, She walked away, she met up with Kali, number 8. I think her name was Kali actually, Kali, I don't know. But they meet up, right? And at that point, when they are safe and somewhere else, you know, she turns invisible in 1 second, right? She is gone, they meet up, and at that point, she's contacting Mike to say goodbye, right? Because they are behind this kind of towers that spit out this weird frequency where they cannot use their power. They're somewhere behind that, right? They must be somewhere in secret, hiding together, and then she's contacting Mike to say her final goodbye. And after that, cleverly, this illusion is casted by number 8 that, boom, now she is suddenly in the upside down gate, in the portal. Like, how did she get there? Nobody knows. It's a complete mystery. She could have not walked there at all. The military would have stopped her. They would have been like, what the hell? We looked for you for how many days? Now you want to go into the upside down? Hell no, right? They would have stopped her right away. But this is the chain of events that must have played out. This is the only logical way. She could have never walked there and then say goodbye. And even if that was true, right? Even if that is true, there is another key detail that shows you that the 11 standing in the portal is not real, but is an illusion made of number 8, while both of them are hiding somewhere, probably in close proximity, so they can contact Mike, cast the illusion, and all of that. The biggest clue here for me is not only the speakers. For me, the biggest clue here is the nose bleeding stuff. You can clearly see, and again, this director choice clearly shows it to you, that while 11 is standing in this falling apart, upside down, her nose is not bleeding, even though she's supposed to have used her powers while communicating with Mike. And the thing is, they dolly zoom in on her face, you know, and from what angle? From like a low angle. So you can clearly see her face from below, clearly pointing at the nose to show us, hey, there's no blood there, look, there's no blood. So that for me is also the biggest giveaway that this scene didn't happen like that. It's an illusion, so Kali and 11 together can fake their own deaths, separate from the group for good for the time being. Maybe eventually they will try to connect with the group, connect with them back, right? But they first need to get rid of Vecna somehow. And also, if you think about it further, this is explained by Mike as his theory, right? And it is actually very important that this is explained by the Duffer brothers, that this scene is in the finale, right? Because they need to give us some sort of clue here, right? That there is some play with illusions, that there is some playing with illusions, that number 8 might be alive. I know they spin it in a way that she, with her last kind of power, kept up this illusion, but no, she was not dying at all. I think she made it out completely. But I think the Duffer brothers cleverly needed to give us this part, because if they wouldn't have given us this, right, it would be incredibly hard, pretty much impossible to figure out everything that's going on, right? Without this Mike theory that Kali was still alive, that 11 is probably not really dead, they needed to leave that in this finale. Otherwise, we could have not, you know, think about all of the other theories. It would have been too hard. It would have been way too hard. It would have been also very unlogical to kind of think about this other illusion layer that's going on. So they're leaving this purposely there to make us curious about illusion, to think about it, and then think about it more deeper. Where else was an illusion? Where did Vecna did an illusion actually? Where did 8 did an illusion, right? What is actually the real plan of 11? What is going on, right? They needed to give us this, and this is why I'm very sure this Mike theory is actually correct. Lastly, keep also in mind, in the very end, you'll see this scene, right, where 11 is walking in Iceland, and this very beautiful panoramic shot with the 2 waterfalls. This one is also a key scene showing us 11 is still alive, and she is actually outside of the illusion in the real world, right? How do we know that? The thing is, in the illusion, everything looks super nice, too nice actually already. Everything is perfect and conform, and Mike said that he wants to escape with 11 to a place where there are 3 waterfalls, right? Meaning, if we're at that shot, would still be in Mike's illusion and in Mike's vision how the future looks like for each character, then there would be a scene with 3 waterfalls. But because we are in the real world, we are in a real place in Iceland with only 2 waterfalls and nothing too crazy like 3 waterfalls, right? And there's a reason the whole production team was flying to Iceland to capture this scene, right? You don't, if the scene is not important, you don't fly there and set everything up. You can do it on a green screen. But they did the scene physically, meaning they want to show us, yes, this is the real world, this is what really is happening. Meaning 11 definitely escaped. Kali, we didn't see her, so could theoretically be that she is dead, but as I said, I believe they escaped as a team. They will meet up in Iceland somewhere, and then they will make a plan to fight Vecna from there. So they escape the danger of Vecna, they escape the danger of the military, they fake their own death, so they're separated in the mind layer as well. Everybody remembers them as dead, and from there they can regroup, plan, and strike back. But now, before we go to the 12 kids, Holly and everything, let's talk about this one. I personally love this one.
The game.
So
A new
guys,
loop.
this one is also juicy and clearly shows us this is by far not the end of Stranger Things. This is just the end of a loop, which then is restarting. The end of a game, if you want, that is restarting. This has been foreshadowed again in the first episode of season 5. This is why I'm slowly starting to believe, yes, season 5 is actually pretty genius in all of this stuff that was going on, where I was thinking, oh, what is all of this stuff? There's nothing happening here. There a lot of stuff happened actually. Let's have a look. In the first episode of season 5, we see this TV with this particular game on it, where Derek is playing it. And if we know some things from Stranger Things, is that the authors love to take video games and board games and use the logic of these games to incorporate into the real world or into the real events, or use them as foreshadowing. We have seen this in season 2 with Max when she played an arcade game where there were monsters in some kind of tunnels needing to be defeated. You needed to defeat monsters in tunnels. This is what happened in season 2, but it was already foreshadowed in the video game. And here it's the same kind of. So in this game there is King Arthur, and we also know that King Arthur is Mike, right, from the group. And let's have a look here. King Arthur is battling monsters in this game, and basically the takeaway from this game is when you beat it, so let's say you have defeated all the monsters as King Arthur, you were beating the end boss as well, then there's no after game or anything. No, the game loops back to the beginning. Okay, you're back at the beginning, and now the interesting thing is, a lot of games are like that. Maybe you remember Zelda Ocarina of Time. Biggest bummer ever that there's no after game. I'm still mad about this until up to today, and my little brother as well. Why is there no after game there, right? Such a beautiful ending and nothing. And the biggest fuck up in Zelda Ocarina of Time, it just resets. You need to beat Ganon again. Why? That is the biggest. Whatever. Great game. It's the best game ever invented. But still, that little thing. But here, basically, it also resets. But not only to the end boss. It resets to the whole beginning of the game. And then what happens? You need to replay the game. And the interesting thing is, this is why this game is crazy. Once you replay it and beat the boss again, you will see the real ending. So the second time you see the real ending, that is crazy. If this is true, this is genius level writing of the Duffer brothers. That would be insane, right? Because what does this mean? Well, it means that the ending we saw was not yet the real ending. We need to loop back to the beginning, replay it, and then we will see the real ending, right? This is basically what it means. This is also why this theory came about. There will be another episode, blah blah. And I'm saying no, there's no other episode. One episode could not even cover all of this. There will be a break, there will be spin-offs, and then eventually there will be another season when more stuff leads to it and more people can see it. Then people get hyped about it, and then we are in the new loop of the game. That will happen maybe even with new characters, with new people. That could very well be. It doesn't need to be the group we already knew, because the group we already know is maybe really at the end. Who knows? Maybe new characters. You replay the game with new characters. And actually it was kind of set up already in that way with Holly in the end, right? The new group going onto the table could be the case. Maybe that was real, but other stuff was not real. We don't know. So now let's take a look here, because there's another big clue right here. This is exactly what is happening. It's not only the game over here foreshadowing it. No, it's also really happening in Stranger Things. How do we know this? Because we know in the end of the final season, right, they do this very beautiful ending. I really enjoyed it, where they kind of rhyme with the first season. Everybody sits at this D&D table again, they're playing, they're all happy and everything. But already at that point, first time I watched it, already at that point when I watched Stranger Things the first time without knowing anything about the rabbit hole, I was always having this feeling something is empty and something is not real. It's like a fairy tale, it's too good, or like it seems artificial, right? And this is on purpose. It must be. The whole kind of cinematic choices they did, the cameras, everything, it just, too nice coloring, the lighting was so nice, right? It was kind of like a dream or something, illusion, right? So yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. So basically there's this nice closing circle. You have season 1 where they're at the Wheeler's house, right? You see the same shot even, you see the house outside with the same sprinklers, whatever, the same camera movements kind of, and then we're again at the D&D table, same kind of angle and whatever, and there They again play D&D. And what happens in season 1? This is super important. I cannot stress this enough. Here, this whole stuff with the number 7 comes in. And like I said, I don't believe 7 means at all there will be a secret episode on, what was it, January 7, whatever. No, that will not happen. The 7 is important due to another thing. It is this dice, right? So, what happens in the season 1? They think they won the D&D game, right? I'm not sure exactly how it was. I need to go back to it. But it was pretty much they were excited and things. But then Will revealed, oh no, you know, I throw the 7 and the Demogorgon or whatever the bad guy was got me, right? And this was also the last time we saw Will, and then all of this stuff happened in the real life. Okay, so basically he throws the 7. They think they are winning, but no, it was a false victory because he threw the 7, which was not good enough. It was kind of like an unlucky throw. I think they were almost there. They just needed to had a high probability to win, I guess. But then this number comes exactly, which messes everything up, and they lose. Okay, so and the crazy thing is, why I love this, is when they play this game again on the very last shot of this scene, like now in season 5, right, when they redo this whole scene again, this freaking dice is at number 7, clearly showing us again, no, this was not the victory you just saw. Actually, we thought we were winning, but there's a little mistake. We have a number 7, meaning this is not really the victory, right? We messed up and the monster is still there. So this is what it basically means, and it was foreshadowed, like I said, here. Very, very smart and clever. I love, if this is true, I love it. I love it, right? So, foreshadowing the events of season 5, false victory illusion, already foreshadowed in season 1, or taking the season 1 events again, right? That is super cool. So now, it just means the loop of the game is now repeating, because they're playing it again, right? But this time, once the game is restarting, we saw this when Holly and everybody comes down the stairs, right? Mike and that group didn't defeat Vecna, but Holly and everybody else coming down, so they are resetting the game. Basically, this is why the scene happened where they're all coming down. Very, very interesting. So the game is restarting and looping. Now, some other things very interesting about this scene is that the basement where they are playing in has 2 doors that are showing. The one where the stairs, you know, go upstairs, and then the one door somewhere in the background. And both of these doors have the knobs on the wrong side. Alright? So again, this is something weird. Not sure if this is a production mistake or not, or just people freaking out. But just a little detail, if you compare it to season 1, the doors are on the wrong side, could show us again, oh yeah, this very nice feeling of us playing here in the group, this victory we had is not real. Something is off in this illusion. The doorknobs are for some reason on the wrong side. And what I like about that actually is, if there was one knob, right, one doorknob on the wrong side, I would say, yeah, could be a mistake. The last time they did this was in season 1, I guess. They wanted to redo this scene. It can happen, but there are 2 doors like that, so kind of strange. Now let's get to some other juicy stuff.
Holly in the Wonderland.
Now let's get into this whole thing with Holly, the spying glass, and most importantly, the wrinkle in time and Kammersatz, or whatever it was called. This is another big key that is not talked about enough. So you guys remember, right? Holly is basically the first one that becomes trapped in Vecna's mind. And why exactly is it Holly that is the first one? It makes a lot of sense because Vecna is after his plan, right, to control Hawkins, in my opinion, and he needs to somehow distract the group. So he needs to create some kind of urgency, so the whole group is in kind of a state of emergency, and he knows if the group is in a state of emergency, there is something personal at stake, then also 11 will of course help them and come out of hiding, right? Very simple. So what you need to do is you need to get somebody from the Wheeler family that will be best. Because in that way, everybody will be distracted, everybody will try to find Holly, everybody will be worried about this Dimension X they find out later, and in that meantime, he can go after his plan without any interference from 11 and the others. The kids have multi-purposes, actually. I will go through them. Distraction is only one of them. I will explain the others later on. Holly is basically the first one that becomes trapped in Vecna's mind, and she is spying around there. How is this shown to us? She conveniently finds a spying glass. So the Duffner brothers, they're showing us deliberately, okay, she is actually spying on Vecna's mind. The thing is, not only she finds the spying glass, she also finds this kind of Boy Scout uniform, and all of that is presented to her in a big Zelda looking like treasure box or something like that, right? I remember. And the more I think about all of this, the more I hated all of this. Okay, and the reason why I hated it, because the first time I watched Stranger Things, and like I said, I keep saying the first time, I only saw it one time, but why I hated this is everything in this whole scene and everything that happens with Holly is super convenient, and just it cannot be coincident like that, right? Like, this is where my mind was also zoning out, because I was like, wow, this is a trash script. Like, I was like, what happened to Daphne Brothers and Stranger Things and everything, right? Because remember, she gets all of this stuff under the bed in like a nice little present. You know, you could not even make it more obvious. You might as well put a little Christmas present under the bed or whatever, giving her the outfit, giving her this spyglass. Then she walks around, right? What is so crazy, she gets all of these tools, right, that sparks her curiosity and takes her closer to Vecna's memory, right? This memory scar, right? So she gets that already presented. And then, yeah, why was the spyglass with the uniform deliberately found? Why it was deliberately to be found, right, in this kind of treasure chest? Why is there an M shape on the lid matching exactly the cave, right? Deliberately, in the end, revealing the exit of the mine trap. That, to me, this was the most bad writing on the first glance. Now I'm thinking differently about it, but in the first glance I was like, God damn, is this stupid. This is like, you know, Star Wars kind of level of writing, or with the MacGuffin, you know, where you match a shape. I'm like, oh my god, no way they do this here. This is too stupid. Because what kind of villain, Vecna, who wants to keep those kids in his mind prison trap, whatever you want to call it, what kind of villain places some objects there with the exact shape on it, but exactly matching the mine cave where you then find the secret hidden memory scar where you can escape? Who is doing that? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? And Holly is a kid. She is not that clever. Okay? You cannot tell me, oh yeah, she know all about this because she's so clever. No, she's a curious little kid. So that means, and I was thinking this the whole time already, there is a trap here. There is definitely a trap. You find some mysterious objects under your bed. You find weird shapes, like a weird shape cut on this kind of object. Like, that must be a trap. And I was so pissed when it turned out they could escape like that and there's no trap. I was like, what? This is not the Vecna I knew. Like, they're in his mind, for Christ's sake, so he can easily see they want to escape. And he, as I imagine it, he can easily shape things in his mind, right? So I imagine this spyglass was not in a way that Vecna kind of had this spyglass and then with a little knife put down this little M shape there, exactly like the cave or whatever. No, this didn't happen, right? They're in his mind, so in his mind he can create this object, or a trauma can create this object. Maybe a trauma put this shape on there. Could be. But what I believe is that while Holly was in this whole mind world, he knew Max is there. Of course he knew Max is there. He knows Max is hiding in the cave, and he uses Max to lure Holly out of this house. He knows they will meet eventually, right? He even pretends, I remember, oh yeah, I'm gone, I go somewhere, you have the whole house for yourself, do what you want, but don't go in the forest. Like, of course a curious kid will go into the forest. Come on, what is that? Then he places these objects deliberately there, right? And how he places them with his mind, of course. Like I said, it's not like he crafted this M shape or something with the spyglass. No, he just thinks about it, and then this is how I imagine it, and then this M shape appears on this kind of spyglass, right? So this is why already the first time I watched this, I was 100% sure there is a trap about to come, and it never came. But let's think about it again. Did the trap really not come? So, because now I think what really happened is that Vecna knew what was going on in his own mind, of course, and he left clues everywhere to guide, in the end, everyone, leaded by Holly and Max, right, to his cave memory exit. He wanted that, and like clockwork, because the clock was always ticking down and stuff, they all go through it. I remember, I'm pretty sure all 12 kids went through that, right? I need to ask ChatGPT again, but let's say it was all 12. I hope so, otherwise maybe the theory doesn't make sense, but I think pretty much everybody went through that to get out of this mind cave. So I believe he wanted that everybody went through there, and this is also why he was never able to catch them, because I was thinking this was another thing I hated about this whole scene. I was like, how is Vecna so slow, like walking like a turtle, like, oh, I'm here, I'm so scary, yeah, you better run, oh, and then he tries to, with his arm, to try to catch them. Sometimes he kind of catches them a little bit, but then lets them go because he's actually too weak or whatever. No way. I remember even when one time he grabbed Derek, right, and then just let him go. Like, there is no way. So he just wanted to be scary, so they all, after that they discovered this cave, go through the cave on their own will. And there must be some reason why they must do this on their own will. he probably cannot force them to go through it. It must be on their own will. This is why this whole trap must be working out like that. Okay, so he planted the clues. Holly was the leader with Max, and they all go through it. And this was also the reason why he kept Max so long in his mind cave. Because this is the other thing. Why is Max 2 years in Vecna's mind and he cannot go for any reason, oh, in this dangerous rock place? No, he left her there because he needed her to guide Holly there so they can escape on their own free will, right? I think this all was supposed to happen, right? And yes, there is this other reason why he cannot go into this place with the rocks. It's because the mind flayer doesn't want him to see that. This was also shown, so yes, there's also some trauma stuff there where he actually cannot physically go there. So this could also be the other explanation. Maybe he could have forced the kids to go through this kind of scar or memory exit. Maybe he could have forced them, but because he could not go himself there, he kind of needed to use Max, you know, to take them there. That could also be the explanation. But it could also be that they must go out of there on their own free will or something like that. Either way, they all exit there, and with that, I believe Vecna's plan is actually concluded. Okay guys, and now let me explain you where the whole Alice in the Wonderland reference comes in. We know Holly exactly dresses like Alice in the Wonderland, and this was also already admitted that they wanted to reference Alice in the Wonderland. She's exactly dressed like that, she exactly looks like that, and also not only Holly, also Vecna or Henry is dressed as the rabbit, the guide in Alice in the Wonderland. That means that they are both in an illusion. Holly was guided into the illusion by Henry, and Henry is the white rabbit guiding her into the illusion, right? This is exactly what happens in Alice in the Wonderland. Now, the key points here, why is this important? In Alice in the Wonderland, you remember Alice wants to get out of it because she noticed it's strange there and strange stuff is happening, but she thinks she has a key, which here, in Stranger Things, the key is the spying glass, right? With the M-shaped lid. She thinks she has a key and she thinks there's a door in Alice in the Wonderland. In Stranger Things it's the same. You have the spying glass with the M shape and you have the cave. And there is also a door which leads to the memory scar where she thinks she can escape. But it's a trap. Why it's a trap? Think about it. In Alice in the Wonderland she tries to go through the doors with those keys. Alice in the Wonderland shows you when you go through a door, you actually don't get out of the illusion, you get deeper into the illusion. With every door you open, you get a layer down, right? This is also why the mine, when they fall down the mine, they go down, right? Every time they open kind of a gateway, they go down. Remember when Holly was on the merry-go-round wheel? She broke it and she also went down. So always they go down when they open another gate, right? Meaning they go deeper into the illusion actually. They're not getting out of it. They think they're getting out of it, but they're not. So what's actually happening in Stranger Things Season 5, it's a deep mind labyrinth that is going on. And Vecna is pulling his victims into this. And how do we know this? Because Vecna likes spiders, right? And you can also look at so-called mind flayer or whatever they were fighting. It was a big spider. We know that spiders, they make a web, and once you're in the web, you're trapped. So this is exactly like this works. The actually web where everybody gets stuck in is the illusion web, right? And Henry or Vecna pulls with the mind flayer together everybody into the web. We don't know yet who's actually behind pulling all the strings. Are Vecna and the mind flayer a team working together, or is actually the mind flayer controlling Vecna? This we don't know yet, but let's just say they're a team. And you are inside this vast labyrinth trying to get out. You see some doors, you run through them without thinking, and the thing is you end up deeper in the illusion. And this is exactly what is happening here, what Alice in the Wonderland is telling us. Now, how does Alice get out of the illusion? She eventually notices that everything is wrong and wakes up. Okay, once she wakes up and sees the doors are actually not the solution, I just need to wake up, then it's over. So this is why I'm convinced that once they go out this exit of Vecna's memory scar, that actually what they're doing, they're going into a deeper illusion. And the illusion is what we already know, where Vecna puts the whole town of Hawkins into a trance, right, with the radio tower. So when they go back, they end up in that illusion. And I believe not only they go back to that, they are opening gates. That's the other thing, why it's important. Because all 12 kids go through Vecna's exit. Why they don't go through their own exits, right? Why not? No, they go all through Vecna's exit. And Vecna, I think, is purposely guiding them there, making them scared and everything so they don't think and again do a rushed decision and go out there. And while they're doing that, I believe it's just like in season 4. You guys remember in season 4 when Dustin and Max were talking about, oh, Vecna is coming and he's taking all of these victims, and every time he takes somebody from our school, he's actually opening another portal, right? Another portal that is connecting the Upside Down to Hawkins, and it's all a big plan. I think the same thing is here with those 12 kids. He's actually opening portals between Dimension X and the new controlled Hawkins. I think this is why he needs all of these 12 kids to go through that exit. But now, my final conclusion is Vecna guided the 12 kids to go exactly through his memory gate, and here's the key, they are vessels. He told us this over and over again, right? And maybe you remember in season 4, go back to that, in season 4, like a similar thing was happening already. In season 4, there was Dustin explaining to Max how Vecna is getting into the mind of all of these school people, right? Messing with them. And he's going into their minds because every time he's doing that, he's opening a portal, right? He's opening a portal from the Upside Down to Hawkins, and in the end, everything breaks free or something like that, right? So this here is a very similar concept, but this time, it's on another level. This time, Vecna wants to connect directly the Abyss, Dimension X, with Hawkins, right? This is what I believe, with the real world, okay? And for this, he has the 12 kids, and once they go to the portal, basically, these kids become controlled by him. This is also why he always feeds them this stuff into their mouth, this crazy scene where he kind of traps them, feeds them some stuff, keeps them in the illusion, right? And then he wants them to see his own memory scar, and he wants them to use his exit, right? Because they never escaped through their own exit, right? They went through Vecna's exit, right? There must be a reason. I think once they do this, this becomes kind of like opening portals, right? Like the same like in season 4. So he's opening like 12 portals from Abyss to Hawkins, and he controls the kids and can tap into their mind at any time, right? So he has new vessels, new 12 little wills, if you want to speak in that term. And this is why I'm also saying the whole thing is repeating. The whole game is just looping and repeating, right? In the first season, it was with Will. This is exactly what happened. You know, he became the one that was kind of controlled by the mind flayer. Now it's 12 other kids who are controlled by the Mind Flayer and Vecna, and now they are building new portals with the direct gate through it. So they're building a gate with 12 kids, 12 vessels, and the thing is, this is why also the Upside Down is not needed anymore, right? This is why the Upside Down is not needed anymore as a gateway, because the Upside Down was the thing that was connecting Dimension X to Hawkins, right? It was this kind of wormhole in between thing, and now that the new real plan is completed from Vecna and the Mind Layer, they don't need the Upside Down anymore, so they don't care if it's blown up, right?
I was watching Stranger Things 5 and noticed something crazy. Back in season 4, we see Holly playing with a toy and drawing a white rabbit. But wait, what if I told you this was a foreshadowing detail? Check it out. In season 5, Holly is literally dressed as Alice. And we even see an Alice in Wonderland poster in Volume 2. So if Holly is Alice, Henry is the White Rabbit with the same vest and pocket watch. But wait, when I rewatched Alice in Wonderland, I noticed something. First the clock, then this shape. Does it look familiar? This isn't just a coincidence, it has to mean something. Either Henry is just a servant of the Mind Flayer, like the White Rabbit serves the Queen of Hearts. Or this connects directly to Henry's sister, because in one scene, Holly is wearing her clothes. And guess what the name of Henry's sister is? Mind blowing.
So, a new portal or 12 portal, whatever, is now open, and the crazy thing is, what does this mean for Vecna himself? What about his death?
Vecna's death.
because we saw that he is killed, right? So about this one, there are two kind of solutions. I'm still in between, right? Either he really died, could be, why not? And basically that means, okay, he died, but did he really die, right? Maybe it was only his avatar that died, right? His body, his physical form, but actually already he is in all of these minds of the kids and connected to the mind flayer as well and controlling all of that, right? So that would be perfect because everybody knows now he is Vecna, how he looks, and so he needs to kind of hide himself away. How can he do that? He can just die. Easy as that. So that could have happened. But it could also be this other solution that, alright, this whole end fight was an illusion, you know, casting that was made up by Vecna in somebody's mind. It never happened, that they lost, and now they're just living in some kind of comfort, right? And that could also be.
Here is even more evidence that everyone at the end of Stranger Things is trapped in a false reality created by Vecna. Now first, Vecna is clearly not dead even after the final battle. We know this because in the D&D game in the beginning of Season 4, the kids play against the D&D version of Vecna. And towards the end of their battle, Eddie explains that
He is not only missing his left arm, but his left eye.
Dustin then attempts to kill Vecna, but fails because he rolled an 11. Now this is all important because in the final fight during the finale, Vecna loses his left arm, his left eye is then missing, and Joyce then attempts to kill him by hitting him with an axe exactly 11 times. Vecna's supposed defeat in the finale went down exactly how it did in the D&D game in the beginning of Season 4. And if you remember that D&D games, the heroes thought they defeated Vecna until Eddie states that
Vecna lives!
Why exactly 12 kids? I'm not sure why there's this number. It might be something about some kind of board games again. I'm not too deep into it, so I have no idea. But it could also be something obvious like 12, like on the clock, right? Because we always see, how many times did we see this clock in Vecna's house? Too many times, right? So there is something about time always, and 12 could be referring to the clock as well. Here's another idea you could take away, which I've been thinking about, which for me is a little bit too meta, but I will go into it. What about the Last Supper, right? Because the way they sit on the table and everything kind of has the Last Supper vibes, and we know the Last Supper, there's Jesus, which is the Messias and leader, and there are 12 disciples, right? So that means Vecna is kind of the spiritual leader and all of the kids are his disciples, which basically happens, right? You have a strong, very strong reference there. One time I remember where the whole kids, they behave like a cult at one point, I remember, and only like Holly was not in the cult and Derek was kind of in between. So this I remember, therefore actually like a religious like reference would fit pretty well. And also if you think about it, the Last Supper also means betrayal, and Vecna becomes kind of betrayed by Holly or 11 who breaks in then. So that makes sense. Then the other thing why it kind of makes sense in terms of foreshadowing, it foreshadows the death of Vecna. He's dying, like Jesus is dying, but in a twisted way, this means that he will be resurrected, right, as a hero, and everybody will follow him after that, right? Because he will become like this Messias figure, and that would actually mean that Vecna didn't die, he is alive, and whole town of Hawkins will after that follow him, which I believe happens. And not only that, how is Jesus like resurrected? Through the belief of his disciples, right? And that means Vecna would be still alive through the 12 children, which I also believe is actually the case. Vecna is not dead, he lives through the children. And
Okay. Time travel and Stranger Things.
I'm in Paris, Le Manger. Remember back home, I was starving. I bet that map just chatting. One of the ops rest in their casket.
Okay.
another thing I want to talk about is time. Time is super important always in Stranger Things, right? We have been alluding to it so many times. We also see many clocks in Vecna's house and everywhere. And also in season 5 there was this reference to time travel when the wormhole was explained, right, by the teacher. For me, I always expected that in Stranger Things time travel will become important, because also the Upside Down was stuck in a specific date, and I was kind of bummed that it never did. However, here is something crazy I was also thinking about, so have a look at that one, because no one is talking about it, and I can't believe it. This is a connection I came up with, which could be used by the authors. It doesn't have to, but it could be. Do you remember, guys, when the group was in the Hawkins lab, but in the upside down. Do you remember that? And do you remember how the walls all looked? The walls were all like melted, and there were like soldiers inside the wall, like sliced through by the wall, and all of this melting stuff was very weird. Now, I was thinking about, where is this coming from? Where is it coming from? Because they don't make all of this for no reason, right? This must have been super costly on the set to create all of that. It looked super crazy good and super scary as well. Here is the solution, guys. This is where this is coming from. Philadelphia Experiment. And now the crazy thing, to go full circle, Philadelphia Experiment is connected to Montauk as well. And you know the Duffer Brothers like to take up those conspiracy. Philadelphia Experiment and Montauk, they're connected. Without going through it in all detail, you can actually watch the YouTube channel Y-Files. I really like that one. There everything is explained. But to keep it short, basically there was this ship USS Eldridge, and according to the conspiracy there was a Philadelphia Experiment with this ship where the ship actually was time traveling. The ship was getting invisible and it came up again in a completely different city, completely different location, and there are two people on this ship which basically got off the ship and they started time traveling. Right? Those two are actually the ones that also started this conspiracy. I don't know their names, but they said this all happened and they were time traveling, right? Now, the crazy thing is, in this experiment, when the ship appeared again, everything was messed up. Like there were soldiers halfway through a wall, like everything was melted. It exactly looked like what happened in the Hawkins lab. This set was not just like fun to look cool. No, this is exactly alluding to Philadelphia Experiment, or where it took its inspiration from. You had all of these soldiers like melted into the walls. There was like, these walls were melted with some stuff that we couldn't explain, and it looked all like spooky and crazy. This is exactly from the Philadelphia Experiment. Now, what does this mean to us? Because, as I said, in the Philadelphia Experiment, it goes so far that people who escaped the ship were actually starting to become time travelers, according to the conspiracy. And how did it work? Those people were time traveling and living two lives at once. At that moment where this problem happened with the ship, basically they split. They stayed in the same time, but also they time traveled somewhere. Something like that, right? I don't fully understand it because this conspiracy is a bit too crazy for me. But basically it split, their timeline split, and they were living two lives. Now, think about it, guys. In Stranger Things, they shoot the exotic matter on top of the lab, right? And we know already this happened before because we saw the melting stuff. We saw exactly what happened before, and once they shot it, all of this started again, right? The walls were melting again, and clearly what we could see from all of the evidence going on is that this exotic matter was already unstable before at some point and became stable, and now it became unstable again. And then you see this whole flare going over the sky, right? This very epic shot. And this cannot be for nothing. This is not just for show, like fireworks in the sky, yeah, beautiful, we want to make a spectacle out of it, look cool and whatever. Because when I watched season 5, I also didn't understand it. I was like, yeah, this looks so cool, what is happening now? And then nothing happens. But no, that is not true. Something must have happened here at this point. It must have been the same, that the timelines were kind of splitting or something like that. So could it be that some people, and maybe it is Nancy and Jonathan, because they were in this room where everything was melting, they were going into this stuff, right? What about they were affected by this, and what about that they basically time jumped, right? So basically they stayed, of course, in the timeline that we know, but just like in the Philadelphia Experiment, another version of them is now out there in a different time, right? Living two lives at once. And how it goes in the Philadelphia Experiment is that the guy who is living can see visions of the future and past and stuff like that, because he feels that he has another life somewhere. This is, I believe, how it works in the Philadelphia Experiment. But this would mean that some people of the group probably have now another life somewhere in another time, and with this they could then maybe beat Vecna. So maybe this theory I had the whole time, that two kind of time travel or something, they will beat him in the end. Maybe this will become now true. Maybe this comes here into fruition. So my personal idea for Stranger Things before season 5 even started was always the idea that in season 5 there will be a huge mind game going on, because we know this is how Vecna operates, and I thought this mind game will take us to the point where we don't know what's real and what's not real anymore, right? And on the first glance of this season I was super disappointed because I thought none of that happened. But now, looking more deeply, I believe this is exactly what happened. Now the other thing that was my strong belief always, because they alluded to time all over again, that time is super important, and also that time travel might be possible. So I was always assuming that, okay, you cannot beat Vecna on the mind layer, it's impossible, because he messes with your mind. You cannot beat them in the physical world. But what about the time layer? What about if you could go back in the past? If you could go back to a specific memory? This was always my idea and suspicion that this will happen at some point. And the crazy part is, guys, it has happened now.
You've been telling me that my entire life, and it's almost never true.
A Wrinkle in Time, the blueprint.
I'm basically saving you the best one here for the end, guys. Just to, if you still don't believe in any of this, just to give you the final dagger. This one, it's so juicy. Okay, for this, again, we will go back here to ChatGDP, the good old friend, right? Can you explain Stranger Things, you know, the Wrinkle in Time reference? And this one is also the reference that 100% cements the idea that Vecna is actually controlling whole Hawkins in the end of Stranger Things Season 5. He is controlling whole Hawkins by tapping in on everyone's mind. And how is he doing that? This is what nobody understands yet, but I just uncovered the secret for you with the radio tower, right? Let me show you the conformity theory that in the end, everything in Hawkins is basically controlled by Vecna because his grand plan worked out and everybody is becoming in this new kind of reality where everything is conform, everybody's kind of the same, and everybody becomes what they don't want it to become. Everybody loses their character, kind of. Everything is much too normal. Everything is well controlled by some invisible force. This is exactly what is happening here. And the Wrinkle in Time, Camazotz, exactly explains us this. Let me show you guys. This is when I noticed, yeah, of course, this is the dagger. Why would the writers exactly bring up this with the name, right? A Wrinkle in Time, Camazotz. Why would they exactly bring this up? This must mean something, right? You don't just have this kind of book reference, show you the image of the book. And this book was laying around also. Keep in mind, if you go through the scenes, this book was laying around somewhere on the floor, somewhere on the table, right? Then Holly was explaining it. It was all over the place. And also the whole Mr. What's It thing also comes from here. This I didn't know, and that's crazy. A Wrinkle in Time reference is not just an Easter egg. It's basically the instruction manual Holly uses to understand what's happening to her and give the audience a framework of Vecna's tactics. This is super important, guys. Once I read this, I knew the conformity theory is 100% correct. Before, I was thinking, yeah, conformity theory makes a lot of sense. I also believe there was a lot of illusion stuff going on. But this one here drives it home. Okay, a direct reference. Holly's imaginary friend calls himself Mr. What's It, which is a riff on Mrs. What's It from A Wrinkle in Time. That is crazy. I didn't know that. This is why I'm glad I looked it up. So in A Wrinkle in Time, there is a person called Mrs. What's It, and they just ripped it off and say, yeah, we have now a Mr. What's It in our Season 5. But it becomes more crazy. Confirms this, Netflix to them confirms this was intentional, and Jamie Campbell Bower describes it as a friendly presentation to lure her. Okay, Holly calls her Henry's mind prison Camazotz, the planet in A Wrinkle in Time that is ruled by it. Okay, now this is crazy. What is it? It, a controlling intelligence that enforces conformity. Alright, this for me is the dagger. Okay, so you have A Wrinkle in Time, you have the same name that is ripped off somewhere, and you have this controlling shadow force there which basically is an intelligence that enforces conformity. This is exactly why in the end, yes, this is what happens in Stranger Things Season 5, is that in the end you see the conformity coming through at the graduation. This is why everybody sits the same, you know, everybody's conform. And there is still this one very funny speech of Dustin, right, where he kind of says we need to break out of the conformity. This is again going back to Eddie, and they do this to again play on this topic, right, to show you there's something going on here. There's some conformity coming in here now. They're leaving the school. They need to go in the real world where everybody loses their own soul, right? Because in the real world you need to sell yourself, right? And you become conform. And this is on many layers, right? And this conformity is actually Vecna, right? That's crazy. And yeah, Tudum also explicitly has Henry compare his spread darkness to the black thing from A Wrinkle in Time. Okay, a Tudum interview with Nell Fisher spells the mapping out very bluntly. Henry is Mr. What's It. So that's confirmed, right? Henry's mind prison is Camazotz, and Vecna is it. So, that is the dagger for the conformity theory, as I said. What it means in Stranger Things, we can already know what it means, but let's go into it. It explains Vecna's strategy, control through comfort and conformity, right? This is how the Conformity Gate evolved. In the book, Camazotz looks normal on the surface, but everything is synchronized and controlled by it. Sounds familiar? Yes, this is exactly what is happening in Stranger Things too. Everything is controlled by the shadow presence of Vecna and Mind Flayer, right? That mirrors how Mr. What's It presents himself. Calm, reassuring, I'm keeping you safe, while actually steering Holly deeper into a controlled reality. Okay, this is also the reason why, you know, I remember many critics about Stranger Things, they were like enraged. Oh my god, this Vecna is totally different. He used to be this badass guy, right? And now he's just so nice and like he doesn't do anything. He doesn't even, you know, he let all his kids escape. He let Will live. He doesn't do anything, right? He's just nice and relaxed. Sometimes he turns into this kind of scary Vecna, scares him a bit, but that's it. Yeah, that's because, and he's himself is calm, reassuring, and keeping you safe, right? You could see this. This is why also they made this split identity between Vecna, still the one we know from the season 4 kind of, but Henry, completely different, right? And this is why in the end, I'm 100% convinced that Vecna was winning, and he controls now everything from the dark, from the shadow, right? That's what is happening, and everybody believes he's dead. This is perfect. Everybody believes he's dead, so nobody knows they're being controlled by him. And everybody thinks everything is fine, they feel comfortable, and this is where the conformity comes in with a dark kind of control, which is over Harkins. And how does it work? Through the 12 kids, right? They made the portal, they are the spies, and you can tap into them at any moment if something goes wrong. So, it frames the mindscape as a fake normal layer. The fake normal layer we saw in the end, in the probably kind of fake ending, right? So, using Camazotz as the name is the show basically saying this is a place where reality can look right while being fundamentally wrong. That's why a lot of viewers connect it to conformity illusion reading to the final. Readings of the final. Yes, this is like I said, this is the dagger. As I said, I didn't even know about Camazotz and I was already thinking, yeah, everything makes sense. But now, 100% convinced. This is of course what the writers wanted to do. And how do they show us this in the end as well? There's another scene. Do you guys remember when Mike is showing kind of the futures for everybody? And you could see the story, how it would unfold, right? Is you saw Luke and Max, you saw Lucas and Max, then you saw Hopper and Joyce, like with this proposal, right? And you saw who else? You saw Will, of course, in this bar and all of that, right? But in all of these scenes, they placed a big exit sign in the background, right? Showing you, okay, yeah, it's nice, it's comfortable, everything is conforming how it should be, but you should maybe use the exit sign, maybe you should escape, because actually you're living in somebody else's reality who has taken over your reality, you don't even know it. Notice it because that person who is taking over your reality, you thought you beat him and he's dead, but he's not. And these kind of ending scenes show us again what would become out of the characters if they would stay in those realities and not notice that anything is wrong, right? So actually, we'd have to say it's actually kind of nice. Maybe we should just go with it, right? But something is wrong, right? It's clever because it's like in the real world. You have to do what you have to do. You know somebody else is pulling the strings, but you're comfortable enough to a point where you forget to ask the questions about why you're following always the invisible strings, right? And they showed us this with all of this big exit sign. And first, when I saw this theory, I was thinking, yeah, kind of okay, right? But it could be also coincidence that there's an exit sign in the back. But what also drives it home for me is they placed an exit sign in each one of those future visions, right? In each one of them. It was not only Hopper Choice, Lucas Max, it was in all of them, right? And this kind of consistency shows me, okay, yeah, they want to show us in a subtle way, okay, this illusion is very, very nice, super nice, exactly what we want, but it's not real because somebody else is controlling it. And ties into the season's wrongness clues. Because A Wrinkle in Time is literally about noticing everything's the same horror, it pairs perfectly with Season 5 repeating idea that small details like colors, props can be tells that you're inside an authored reality. Also interesting, they show us again in the epilogue with the scene where there is Steve, Robin, etc. They're all on top of the radio station and they show us again the big antenna for me, it looks like it has actually way more dishes on it suddenly. And also on the roof and everywhere, it doesn't matter where the camera go in this scene, you will see antennas everywhere. So it kind of maybe reminds us at this point, alright, there's still this broadcast. Everybody is still in the illusion, kind of, in the broadcast, right? And tuned into that. And it's kind of also a reference of the future, right? If you think about it, in the future there are all of the frequencies, more technology trying to control you, right? So it could be a reference to that as well, but just something to kind of pick up on that ending scene. That kind of stood out to me if you think more about this radio tower and the kind of illusion that probably happened with it. In that scene you see a freaking antenna or dish everywhere. It doesn't matter where the camera goes, actually. Alright, we can, I think, leave it at that. So this is also my final conclusion here. Conformity Gate, 100% correct. Actually, Stranger Things Season 5 is well written. I thought it was sloppy and dull and kind of bad script with thousands of plot holes, but actually it's not. It's very well written. It is a blend of stuff that is real, stuff that is an illusion. There's a lot of stuff still to come. I'm excited, guys. And I'm wrapping up. I have enough. I'm tired. I can now give it a rest. I have a very good feeling about it. This season was by far not a failure, as I thought in the beginning. In the beginning I thought this is complete trash. But no, it's not. It's very, very clever. I'm glad, and there's more to come. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
My name's Ketchup and my name is Mustard. Together we're Ketchup and Mustard.
Let's do this.
Smile and wave.
Hello. This is my best friend. Sorry, I was just improving.
It's your grandma.
What's wrong with you?
Cause it's a bittersweet symphony that's